Do you work in maternal child health? Are you looking for some tips on how to better understand young adults? Well, this is the video for you. Young adults are young people ages 18 to 25. They're rather invisible in the MCH world, and it's easy to overlook them as a distinct population with unique needs. This is in part because there's few practical guides on how to invest in their health within MCH programs. Definitely a challenge. My name is Kristen Teipel, and I direct the State Adolescent Health Resource Center at the University of Minnesota and am a partner in the Adolescent and Young Adult Health National Resource Center. We're geeks about young adults and have some ideas on how to address this challenge. So here's my top 10 things to keep in mind as you plan how to work with and engage young adults. Number 1. As of 2019, young adults are made up of two similar but slightly different generations. Young adults who are ages 23 to 25 are the youngest of Generation Y or the Millennials. Those who are ages 18 to 21 are the oldest of Generation Z. As a group, they make up 9% of the U.S. population as of 2017. As time moves forward, young adults will all be part of Generation Z. An interesting fact about Gen Z is that there's a lot of them. They'll be the largest generation in U.S. history by 2020. Our world has been a bit chaotic since young adults were born. They were brought up in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks and have never known a world free of global terror or war. They and their families also experienced firsthand the Great Recession and the foreclosure crises. On top of this, they grew up in a time in which more than 228,000 students experienced school gun violence since the 1999 Columbine shooting, and our country experienced more than 2,000 overall mass shootings since 2012. Number 2. Young adults are a demographic representation of the changing diversity in our country. The millennials ushered in our country's diversity shift, with Gen Z following to become the most racially and ethnically diverse generation in American history. They're projected to become majority non-white in 2026. The serious impact that negative social determinants of health disproportionately have on young people of color will continue to confront and confound our efforts to support young adults' health and well-being. Issues such as income and wealth inequities, racism, and limited access to basic resources are a common experience for many. For example, the majority of young people of color have experienced 6 types of racial discrimination by the time they leave adolescence and move into young adulthood. We can't ignore this. It pushes us to focus on the foundational aspects of health that aren't easily addressed in traditional public health programs. Number 3. Poverty is an issue. Young adults age 18 to 24 have been getting poorer over the last decade, and social welfare programs that are supposed to provide a safety net don't seem to be helping them much. 1 in 5 live in poverty. It's highest among 21-year-olds, almost 25%. They're the only demographic for whom poverty has increased since the early 1970s. It's fallen for most other age groups. This trend holds true even when data are adjusted to account for college enrollment, tuition costs, student debt, and government benefits. Not surprisingly, nearly half of older young adults, those aged 21 to 29, receive some type of financial support from their parents. Poverty is especially problematic for young adults of color who were in middle childhood and early adolescence during the recession and foreclosure crises in the mid-2000s. This had a huge impact, with the loss of wealth disproportionately affecting Black and Hispanic families, making them less able to provide support for their children. Our low-income communities of color were targeted by subprime lenders and experienced even higher rates of bank seizures. Resources were often tight for families in low-income residential areas where young people struggled with gang violence, underfunded schools, and family instability. Sobering. It just reaffirms how important that we continue investing in the foundations of health, the social and physical environments that promote good health for young adults. Number 4. Today's young adults are more likely to live at home and for an extended period of time as compared to those in previous generations. In 2018, a little more than half of 18 to 24-year-olds lived in their parents' home, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Less educated young adults were more likely to experience this living situation than their college-educated counterparts. Very few, that's 5% of young adults, live on their own. The rest either live with a partner or spouse, 16%, other relatives, 13%, or people with whom they aren't related, 10%. Included in here are the 2 in 10 young adults aged 20 to 24 who are parents with children. Keep in mind that some have different living situations, including young adults who make up 43% of the active military members and 6% of people in prison. Disturbingly, some have nowhere to live. On a single night in 2018, more than 48,000 18 to 24-year-olds were homeless. Of these, more than 18,000 were unsheltered, sleeping outside, in a car, or someplace that was not meant for human habitation, and many more were likely missed. We also know that after reaching age 18, 20% of young people who were in foster care will become instantly homeless. Number 5. Education matters to young adults. Gen Z 18 to 20-year-olds are outpacing their millennial counterparts at a similar age in education. More graduate from high school, 80% in 2017, and almost 6 in 10 attend college. This is partly due to a leap of high school completion among Hispanic and Black youth. Yet, in 2015, 6 in 10 young adults aged 21 to 29 weren't able to find the financial support needed to further their education beyond high school. College is expensive. Textbooks are about 90 times more expensive than they were in 2006, and debt is high. On top of financial issues, completing school is also a challenge. In 2018, more than 3 million students graduated from high school, and 2/3 went off to college. Great, except more than half of the students who start college drop out within 6 years. Number 6. It's complicated in the world of work for young adults. They're entering adulthood with less experience in the labor market than prior generations, at least among Gen Z, and less are working, which stems from more young adults attending school. So, who is working? Almost half of 18 to 24-year-olds work but aren't in school. Although they're connected to the labor market, not all connections are equal. Career advancement prospects are limited for workers with low levels of education. So consider then that among young adults who work, 1 in 10 have less than a high school education, 2 in 10 have an associate's or bachelor's degree, and about a half have a high school diploma. That's 5.3 million 18 to 24-year-olds who are done with school and working armed only with a high school diploma. Where they work varies by age. The majority of 16 to 19-year-olds work in leisure and hospitality services, while most 20 to 24-year-olds work in wholesale and retail trade, as well as in education and health services. There's also the young adults working in the military. Good to keep in mind when identifying new partners such as businesses with whom to collaborate. Working is one thing, and what they earn is another. According to the Pew Research Center, earnings disparity is rising among young adults based on level of education. For example, high school graduates without a college degree make less than they have in the past, 15% less than early baby boomers made. And the wage gap between young workers with college degrees and their less educated counterparts is the widest it's been in decades. One word sums up those who aren't working: disparities. For example, the employment rate for young adults with disabilities, those aged 20 to 24, is about half that of their peers without disabilities, 38% and 67% respectively in 2018. For African American young adults aged 16 to 24, their unemployment rate remains 3 times higher than the overall rate, with slightly more than 1 in 8 Black young people actively looking for a job but unable to find one. And for young people aging out of foster care or leaving incarceration, unemployment and poverty-level wages are common. Here's a startling fact, and it's number 7. Almost 5 million young adults aged 16 to 24 are disconnected. That's neither in school nor working and falling behind. That's roughly 1 in 8. Half of disconnected young adults have a high school diploma, and nearly 20% have taken some college courses. So here's the problem. Connected youth, those who are either working or in school, are gathering the things they need in life: credentials and contacts, learning cognitive skills and unspoken behavioral norms, developing agency and confidence, and learning about themselves and others. Disconnected youth, on the other hand, find themselves derailed, which can have serious impacts on their current and future well-being. Keep in mind that disconnection is not just an individual issue, but a systematic one as well. It's rooted in the social issues such as crumbling and isolated communities with low levels of social capital, residential segregation, discrimination, and under-supported schools, and much, much more. Disconnected young adults don't choose to become marginalized. They are surrounded by challenges that are beyond their control, and it takes a toll. They're a diverse group. For example, they're more than 3 times likely to be a young person with a disability of some kind. Clearly, living with a disability is still an impediment to full participation in society for far too many young people, despite laws requiring school, workplace, and public accommodations. There is good news, though. The percentage of disconnected youth has declined from its peak in 2010. Fantastic! Since young people who are connected in teens and early 20s earn approximately $31,000 more annually, 42% more likely to be employed, and 52% more likely to report excellent or good health by their 30s, as compared to their disconnected peers. Number 8. Despite outward appearances, young adults have some significant health issues. Young adulthood is a rather unhealthy time of life as compared to both adulthood and adolescence. In fact, most markers of health in adolescence worsen in a young adulthood. For example, homicide, or motor vehicle deaths, which is twice the rate of adolescence. Substance misuse, for example, binge drinking and driving. Keep in mind that most are sexually experienced and have the highest unintended pregnancy rates for women ages 18 to 24, and sexually transmitted infection rates for young adults aged 20 to 24. It's also a critical period for the emergence of mental health issues. Suicide rates are 3 times higher than in adolescence. 3/4 of lifetime mental health disorders begin by age 24, and rates of mental illness increase in young adulthood. Complicating this, they have less access to and use of health care, lowest insurance rates, and higher rates of insurance coverage interruptions due to changes in employment, income, college status, or family structure. Managing their own health care is a new skill that they're working on. We don't give them much training on this, so they struggle to understand and navigate health care, especially when churning between insurance plans. Finally, they have significantly lower use of health care in general, but significantly higher emergency room use compared with those immediately younger and older. Number 9, life skills. This one always stops me short because it's hard to remember what life was like before these skills were just second nature to me. But this is a task of young adulthood, and it takes time and practice in a variety of situations to make these skills routine. Young adults work to become proficient with less support and the added pressure of using these skills at the same time they're learning them. There's also the issue of brains that continue to develop. Young adults have to work harder than we mature adults to stay focused, make responsible choices, and avoid risky behaviors. They're also refining executive functioning skills like problem solving and prioritizing, thinking ahead and planning long term, and regulating their emotions and managing stress. So let's help them. First, remember that they're working hard on these skills behind the scenes as they move through daily life. Second, give them opportunities to practice. And third, be patient, supportive, and remember that failing is part of learning. Number 10, something we already know but need to honor. Millennials adapted to technology as they came of age during the internet explosion, and Gen Z, well, the Everything Guide to Generation Z says it best. Tech has been part of their diet since toddlerhood. This generation's parents didn't put them in front of a TV for distraction. They instead gave them a tablet, and Gen Z learned to swipe before learning to speak. They've been accustomed to a multi-screen world, had iPhones since the oldest was 10 and iPhones were launched. By adolescence, they connected primarily through the web, with mobile devices, Wi-Fi, and high-bandwidth cell service. They've never known the world without social media and live life with 24/7 access to information and on-demand entertainment. Technology permeates their life. So a word to the wise. If we disregard the importance of technology in our work with young adults, we do so at our own peril. So here's 4 random tech tidbits to keep in mind as you engage with young adults. First, they hate making phone calls. Gen Z grew up texting and with a texting mentality. Their first contacts are typically by text or direct message. They do not do cold calls and they don't like being awkward. At the same time, talking face-to-face is their preferred method of communication. Something to keep in mind when working with them. Tech is important, but so is conversation. Second, they're a video-first generation, attracted to video-oriented social platforms and responsive to edgy visual campaigns, especially those with short videos. Keep in mind that 59% of Gen Z prefer YouTube for education. Something to remember as we plan health education and outreach to young adults. Third, they consume information incredibly quickly. They multitask across 5 screens and communicate in rapid-fire banter. They're experts at swiftly sorting, assessing, and filtering large amounts of content. As a result, we only get a few seconds to convince them that our content is worth their time. So convince them quickly so that they'll engage, explore, and learn. Fourth, they want to co-create. What do I mean? Take a look at their tech use. Young adults don't simply consume social media and entertainment. They help create and shape it. A 2015 marketing research study of 12 to 24-year-olds found that 80% say finding themselves creatively is important. Over 25% post original videos weekly, and 65% enjoying creating and sharing content on social media. Okay, I just have to add one more important thing to know. And it's important because it's about us. We collectively have really negative views about them. Wow. When we view young adults this way, we misinterpret who they are, what they do, and what they really need. It leads us to make judgments and come to potentially wrong conclusions. For example, when they don't show up, we decide that they just don't care, or they're lazy, or they don't want our help. The problem is them when it might well be us. Have we talked with them to understand the issue from their perspective? Maybe we're solving the wrong problem, or using strategies that don't fit, or communicate in ways that just don't reach them. Okay, 11 points to consider as you refine and better target your MCH programs for young adults. So what next? Talk and think about them yourself and with your colleagues. What do they mean for your program? What do young adults think? What might you change or advocate for? Take the time to step into the shoes of young people and see the world from their perspective. The benefits are well worth the effort. If you'd like to learn more, reach out to us at the Adolescent and Young Adult Health National Resource Center. We offer technical assistance and training for state and territory MCH professionals, here to help you be the MCH trendsetter by investing in the health and well-being of young adults.